All right. I love that some of our podcasts have become the longer version and some the shorter version with all the new ability of content and avenues of content that we can produce. So you're so welcome in this space and it's lucky to have you here. So, all right. I think today is a long version one. Door shut, phone face down. Well, if you're driving, then maybe just, keep your eyes on the road. This is the way we do this. I want to start somewhere that has nothing to do with you and actually, in a sense, everything to do with you. That sounds weird. That sounds really weird. Out on a coastline at night, sometime in the last 30 years or so, because here's a thing that actually happened and almost nobody noticed it happened. Within living memory, your parents were already grown. The last lighthouse keepers were taken off the last manned lights. And for centuries, there had been a person out there, a keeper, someone who lived at the edge of the country on a rock, in a tower. You've seen the movies, and whose entire job was the light. And then one by one, the engineers came and fitted the lamps with timers and sensors and a signal back to shore, and the keepers packed a bag and rowed in, and the door closed behind the last of them, and the light, it stayed on. That's the part I need you to sit with. The light stayed on. It got better by most, if not, all measures. More reliable, never sick, never asleep, never distracted, never rowing ashore for a funeral. The automated light doesn't drink, doesn't despair through a long winter, doesn't miss a single night. If you measured a lighthouse purely by, is the lamp lit on schedule? And that is how the accountants measured it. Then automation was a clean, obvious, correct win. You'd have signed off on it too. Personally, you would have. I would have. So why does the story sit a little heavy? Why, when you picture that last keeper rowing away while the light he tended clicks on behind him without him, why is there a small wrongness to it that the spreadsheet can't seem to find? I think you already know where we're going with this. I want you to hold on to that feeling. Hold that feeling tight. We're going to need it for the next couple of minutes because that small wrongness is the most important business signal of 2026. And I think it's a thing your gut has been trying to tell you and you haven't had words for it yet. Here's the year we're actually in. The machine has learned to keep the light. Not a lighthouse, your lights. The proposal goes out on time, the content ships, the model is built, the emails answered, the deck is polished by Tuesday. The lamp is lit every night on schedule, better than you were doing it alone. And a lot of you, the honest ones, are standing on the rock watching the light come on without you feeling that exact small wrongness and wondering if you're allowed to say it out loud. And I want to say, yes, you are allowed to say it out loud. That's what this show is for. But I want to be precise because the lazy version of this conversation is everywhere and it's useless. The lazy version is AI is going to take your job. Be afraid. That's the accountant's version. It measures the lamp. I don't think the real question is whether the machine can keep the light. It plainly can, and it's going to get better at it every 6 months, every week, every 2 months. And no amount of your fear is going to slow that down by a single day. The real question is the one nobody put to those keepers, because by the time anyone thought to ask it, the keepers were already gone. Nobody sat down with the last keeper and said, wait, before you row in, what exactly were you doing out here that the lamp on timer is not doing? What was the job underneath the job? You kept the light, fine. The machine keeps the light now, but were you ever only keeping the light? No, he wasn't. A keeper kept the watch, and keeping the light and keeping the watch are not the same job. They only look like the same job for as long as a person did both. And that's the whole episode. That distinction is the thing I want to put in your hands tonight, so that you can, carry it into next week. The machine can keep the light. It cannot keep the watch. And the maturity move, the entire maturity move for a builder is, in this specific year, is to stop confusing the two. Hand the machine the light with both hands and a glad heart, and learn, maybe for the first time in your life, what it actually means to keep the watch. If you don't know what your watch is, if you've never named it, then automation doesn't free you. It just quietly retires you while the light stays on. And you won't even feel it happen, because the lamp's still lit and the numbers still look fine. That's not a far off risk. I'm watching it happen to good people right now. Let me show you the difference between a light and a watch. Because once you can see it, you can't unsee it. And everything about how you build changes completely. What a light cannot do. A light makes the sound. A watch means it. Tell them apart. The distinction, John Lennox, woven as the single pillar. Let's get exact about what a keeper did, because the romance of it hides the mechanics and your operators. You want the mechanics. A lighthouse lamp does not want thing. It emits a signal, bright, regular, correct. Here's a rock, stay off it. And that is genuinely valuable. Please hear me, I'm not anti-lamp. But notice what the lamp does not do. The lamp does not know that there is a boat out there. It does not care whether the boat makes it home. It shines exactly as bright over an empty sea as over a sinking crew. It has no idea anyone is depending on it. It cannot tell that tonight the fog is wrong, or that a particular vessel has been circling too long, or that the signal it's broadcasting on its perfect schedule is, well, tonight not enough. The lamp produces the warning. It cannot mean the warning. There's no one in sight for it whom the boat's survival is a weight. The keeper was the one for whom it was a weight. The keeper watched. He knew the regulars. He'd noticed a boat that shouldn't be out. He'd hear something in the storm the instruments missed and go down to the water himself. The light was his tool. The watch was his job. And the reason this matters to you tonight, with a laptop full of models that can do your old work in an afternoon, is that you have spent your whole career being praised for keeping the light. And you may never once have been told that the light was never the actual job. Now, a few days ago, Stephen Bartlett sat down with an old man named John Lennox, Oxford mathematician, spent his life at exactly the seam between the machine and the human. And Lennox said a thing I want to bring in here. Not as a philosophy lecture, that's his trade, and he smiles better at it than me, but because he put a clean edge on the exact distinction I'm clumsily drawing with lighthouses. These machines do not think. They have no consciousness. They simulate intelligence. We kind of like anthropomorphize everything. We treat them as if they're conscious being. We need to step back and realize that we are the conscious beings. And that gives us a supreme dignity and value. The machine simulates the signal. It does not have anyone inside for whom the outcome actually matters. It keeps light brilliantly, and there is nobody home keeping the watch. Lennox's words is consciousness. My word for our purposes is weight. Same coastline, 2 doors in, the machine can produce the thing. It cannot be the one for whom the thing matters. And the danger that Lennox names, that we kind of like homomorphize the thing, that we start treating the simulation as if someone's in there, has a very specific business cost that I want to name because the philosophers won't and the productivity gurus can't. And here's the cost. When the machine talks like it understands, and it does, it's fluent, it's confident, it's calm at 3 a.m. in the morning, the founder slowly, without ever deciding to, starts handing it the watch along with the light. And those are different jobs. Handing the machine your drafting is wisdom. Handing the machine your watching is the quite quiet beginning of the end of you as an operator. Let me make that concrete, because watching sounds soft until you load real weight on it. I'll show you the slide because it's never a decision, it's a drift. Week 1, the founder uses the model to draft a tough message to a co-founder. Smart, saves an hour, fine. Week 4, the founder is asking the model what to actually say to the co-founder, which is a different thing. Week 12, the founder is asking the model whether to keep the co-founder at all, and taking the answer seriously because it sounded so measured, so unbothered, so free of all the messy loyalty and history that were kind of like the whole point. Nobody chose that slide. Each step looked like the last one, but somewhere in those 12 weeks, the watch quietly changed hands from a person who'd lived every bit of that relationship to a system that has lived nothing and has nothing on the line. And that's the cost. It doesn't show up on a P&L. It shows up 2 years later as a founder who can't feel their own business anymore. Watch 1, the watch over a person. Every business that lasts is underneath a series of moments where a real human's life ran through your decision. You hire someone, you've just become responsible for whether their family eats. You let someone go, you're sitting in a room ending a chapter of a person's life, and how you do it will kind of like live in them for years. You price a thing. You're deciding whether someone can afford what they actually need. You make a promise to a client, and then Friday comes and keeping it gets expensive. The machine can draft every one of those, every word. It cannot stand the watch over a single one because it is not the one who will live with that, the decision for, towards that person. It has no skin out on that water. And I want to be very specific and very practical here. Automation is real. Automation is a thing. I built so many automations for companies. But there are certain relational elements that are never meant to be AI. Even when I built the most comprehensive and most astonishing sales automations ever, there are so much human intervention required because people don't want to actually buy from machines. Watch number 2, the watch over the truth. The keeper's hardest nights weren't the calm ones. They were the nights the easy reading and the right reading came apart. When the instrument said one thing and the sea said another, and someone had to trust their gut over the gauge. You will have those. The model will hand you a confident, fluent, beautifully reasoned answer, and something in you, something the model does not have and cannot get, will know it's wrong for this person in this moment with this thing at stake. The watch is the willingness to back that knowing. Outsource it and you don't get more efficient. You get a very fast way to be confidently wrong about things that matter. And I want to be fair to the obvious, especially the obvious objection, because someone smart is already forming it. Dion, the machine would probably make a better call than me half the time. It's read more, it's calmer, it doesn't have my blind spots, maybe. On the raw odds, on a calm sea, sometimes yes, but that's the accountant measuring the lamp again. The point of a keeper was never that he was the brightest light. He was dimmer than the lamp. The point is that he was there, present, accountable, carrying it. And that presence is a category of value the brightness can't touch and can't replace. A boat's crew does not just want a correct signal. On the worst night of their lives, they want to know someone is up there who knows they're out there. So do your clients, so do your people. They will not always be able to explain it, but they can feel every time the difference between a thing that was kept and a thing that was merely lit. And that's a line I'd carve into the wall of every young company in this exact year. Hand the machine the light, never hand it the watch. The light is the work that can be produced. The watch is the work that has to be meant. And meaning it requires someone for whom it weighs something, which is to say it requires you awake on the rock when it would be so much easier to let the timer do it at all or on its own. So stop racing the light. You'll lose. Go deeper into the watch. The inversion, kind of like a piece of testimony that I want to look into. Because I have to tell you what this fear does to good builders, because I had it bad and I watch it nearly hollow me out, and almost nobody says it out loud, so I will. For a long stretch last year, every time a new model dropped, I felt a little smaller. Each upgrade did in an afternoon a thing I'd spent years getting proud of being able to do. Write the proposal, build the model, find the angle in the mess, and there's a voice that arrives with that. Quiet, reasonable sounding, which is what makes it dangerous. And the voice says, keep up. Learn every tool the week it ships. Outrun the thing on its own track or be left on the rock. Race the light. Here's what took me too long to see. You are being baited into a race you were built to lose. On the one track, where losing is kind of like guaranteed. The light will always keep the light better than you. That was true the day they automated the first lighthouse, and it's true now. Trying to outproduce the machine at production is the single most expensive mistake a young operator can make in 2026. Not because you'll fail, though you will, but because every hour you spend racing the light is an hour you're not spending learning your watch. And the watch is the only ground where the machine cannot follow you. So let me hand you the reframe that actually got me off the rock, because it isn't a pep talk. It's just true. And you can run the logic yourself. The better the machine gets at things that can be copied, the rarer and more expensive things that can't be copied become. That's not inspiration, that's supply and demand. The market is about to be flooded with competent output. Flooded, which means competent output is about to be worth very little. The way anything gets cheap when it's everywhere. And the things that stay scarce, presence, judgment you'd stake your name on, the relationship where someone trusts your word over a flawless sounding answer, the willingness to carry a weight nobody can carry for you. Those don't get cheaper as the machine improves. They get more expensive every single quarter, because the thing, kind of like the machine, is busy making everything around them cheap, and watch the form the bait takes, because it's clever. It doesn't show up as panic, it shows up as ambition, which is why good people fall for it. It looks like a content calendar of new tools to master. It looks like the course, the certification, the second course, the founder on your feed who's apparently fluent in 9 systems you've never heard of. It feels productive. It feels like keeping up. And all of it is racing the light, pouring your one scarce life into getting marginally faster at the exact category of work that is collapsing toward free. You can win every one of those races and still wake up in 2 years as a slightly faster version of a thing the machine now does for nothing. The keepers who outlast this decade won't be the ones who learned the most tools. They'll be the ones who, while everyone else raced the lamp, went quietly deeper into the watch. There's an old line I keep coming back to, and I'll give it to you kind of like applied, not preached, because that's the deal on this show. Psalm 127 opens, "Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the watchman stays awake in vain." Now I'll sit with the architecture of that for a second. Not the theology, the architecture. Even in the oldest texts we have about building things, there are two jobs named. And they're the two we've been circling all night. There's building, production, the labor, the light, and there's watching, the keeping, the meaning, the presence. And the text takes for granted that a city needs both, and that the watching is the deeper of the two. 3,000 years ago, they already knew the lamp wasn't the job. We're just the first generation that got handed a machine good enough to make us forget it. Let me make kind of like keep the watch practical, because if I leave it abstract, it becomes a fridge magnet, and I'd rather it become your Monday. I'll tell you what it cost me once, so you know it isn't just theory. Years back, early when I had almost nothing, I still guess I have a lot. I'm thankful for it. But when I want to say truly had nothing, and I couldn't afford the hit, I had to let someone go who I genuinely care about from the team. There was no clever way to do it, no draft, no draft that made it land soft. I sat across a table from a person whose life was about to get harder because of a call I was making. And I had to be the one who was there for it. No tool could carry that for me. Well, I guess most of the tools aren't really available to do that in any case. No output, however good, could mean it on my behalf. I had to keep that watch myself. Look him in the eye, own it, sit in the discomfort, make sure he left with his dignity even though he was leaving. I've thought about that man for years. That is the work, not the spreadsheet that said the role had to go. A machine could have built that spreadsheet in 9 seconds and would have been right. The work was the watch, the being there, the carrying. So here's what keeping the watch actually looks like in a week for you. It looks like keeping the promise you made on Monday when Friday, makes it costly. It looks like telling a client the true thing instead of the smooth thing. Even though the smooth thing was right there, drafted, ready to send, it looks like being the person in the room who's actually awake to the human on the other end of the transaction. Not because it scales, but because it's the watch. And the watch was always the job. And the beautiful, freeing thing is that the better the machine gets at the light, the more time it hands you back for exactly this. If you've decided in advance that this is what you'll do with the time, not just race the lamp, I stopped asking what's left for me to do now that the machine does it, so much. That question gets worse answers every 6 months. It's accountant's questions. It measures lamp. I started asking a different one. Who do I need to become so that my presence is the part of the work that can't be faked? That question gets a better answer every year. And it has never once been answered by a model. When I say model, I'm not talking about, bikini models. I'm talking about LLMs, ChatGPT, those type of models, because the answer isn't information, it's formation. It's a kind of thing you can only build by standing the watch, night after night, when the timer would happily do it for you. No keeper stood alone. Not one of them. So there's one more thing before I let you go. And it's the one I'd least want you to miss, because it's where good builders quietly go wrong even after they've understood everything else tonight. Here's the thing about the old lights. A keeper almost never stood the watch alone. On the hard stations, there were 2, 3 of them. And they kept each other honest and awake through the long nights, because one man alone on a rock in the dark gets things wrong. You start seeing things that aren't there and missing things that are. You were not built to keep the watch alone either. And in this specific year, you are surrounded by voices offering to stand it with you. And most of them have nobody on the water. 2 of them especially. The first is the flattering room. The people around you who only ever tell you you're right, not because they're cruel, because they like you or need you, or it's just easier than the truth. You bring them a decision and they hand it back warmer than you gave it. That voice will keep watch with you, sure, but it's asleep at the post. It has nothing at stake in whether you make it home or not. The second is newer and almost nobody's kind of like warning you about it yet. The machine that only ever sounds sure. You bring the model your hardest call at 1 in the morning. Should I trust this person? Should I take this deal? And it answers instantly, fluently, with total composure, not 1 ounce of skin out on that water. And because it sounds like a keeper, you start treating it like one. But it is the lamp again. It will give you a confident signal over a sinking boat exactly as calmly as over a calm sea, because there is no one in there for whom your boat matters. Set those 2 side by side, the flattering friend and the confident model, and you see they're the same failure wearing 2 faces. Both hand you a kind of like counsel that costs the counselor nothing. Neither has a thing at stake in how your night ends, and that precisely is why both are dangerous. Because the value of a watch is the skin in it, and these 2 have none. Simon Sinek, love the guy, teaches a small habit I love for exactly this. That when something goes right, the first question out of your mouth should be, who helped you? It's a way of training your eye to find the people who actually carried weight for you, the ones with something real on the line in whether you make it or not. Build your watch out of those people. 2 or 3 of them is plenty. People with scars and standards who will tell you the true thing and who have something genuinely at stake for you, who lose something if you go on the rocks. That's a keeper's economy. And that's a keeper's company. The flattering room and the confident machine are not in it, no matter how good they make the night feel. So here's your actual work this week. Not a worksheet, just an honest hour. Take stock of whose voices are standing your watch right now. How much of it is the room that only agrees? How much of it lately is a fast, confident model you've quietly started trusting like a person? And who, name them, actually has skin on your water? If that last list is thin, that's not a small thing. That's the assignment. Go and build that watch on purpose before the night you'll need it. Because nobody builds in the storm. The machine learned to keep the light this year, and it keeps it better than you would ever do. And that is genuinely good news, provided you know what you are for. You were never only the lamp, you were the keeper, the one who's there, the one for whom the boat matters, the one who watches the truth when the easy reading and the right reading come apart, who's kind of like carries the weight of a real person through a real decision, who keeps the promise when Friday makes it cost, and who flatly refuses to make a thing that sounds sure for a thing that has skin in your survival. So hand the machine the light, both hands, glad heart, no fear. Let it do the work it can actually do and take your evenings back. But you keep the watch. Become the kind of builder whose presence is the part of the work that can't be faked, can't be flooded, can't be copied in an afternoon. The light is automated now. It was always going to be. The watch was never the lamp's to keep. It's yours. Go and stand it.